little late at 8:10 on December 5th. I'm going to call the meeting to order, ladies and gentlemen. To view the live stream video of this meeting, please go to the Lewis Palmer School District 38 YouTube page at www.youtube.com, user LPSD community. At this time, we have 3 standing board members, which we'll call roll call. Ms. Wood? Mr. Norris?
Here.
Here.
Here. At this time, we'd like to do a Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Brown, would you like to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you. So again, I want to remind everyone this is not a normal work session. This is a special meeting so that we will be voting and swearing in administering oaths of office to our new board members. So at this time, can I get an approval of the agenda?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as stands.
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Wood?
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. B1 is our administration of oaths of office. So at this time, I would like to call both Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Norris up to the front.
I gotcha. We'll get it.
Notice they have to make it shorter for me. That works.
Okay.
So standing in front of me, I have our returning board members, Mr. Chris Norris from Director District 1 and Mr. Ron Schwartz from Director District 4, who will be seated at your regular seats. So we will start out with Mr. Norris, since you're in Director District 1. Sir, would you raise your right arm? I state your name.
I, Chris Norris,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform the duties
that I will faithfully perform the duties
of the Office of School Director
of the Office of School Director
as required by law
as required by law
and will support the Constitution of the United States,
and will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of Colorado,
the Constitution of Colorado,
and the state laws made pursuant thereto.
and the state laws made pursuant thereto.
Congratulations, sir. Mr. Schwartz, will you please raise your right arm? I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully perform the duties of the Office of School Director as required by law, and will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and the laws made pursuant thereto. Congratulations, sir. I would now like to call up our newest board members, Ms. Patty Shank from Director District 2 and Mr. Todd Brown from Director District 5 to come forward. Ms. Shank, would you please raise your right arm? I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully perform the duties of the Office of School Director as required by law, and will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and the laws made pursuant thereto. Congratulations. Mr. Brown, would you please raise your right hand? I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully perform the duties of the Office of School Director as required by law, and I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and the laws made pursuant thereto. Congratulations, sir.
Good job, Patty.
We now have a 5-member Board of Education for the Lewis Palmer School District 38. Congratulations, everyone. And to our 2 newest board members, welcome to the board. So we're not done yet with all the fun. Our next item is B2, election and appointment of officers. As is required by statute, nomination process for president and vice president of the Board of Education will be conducted, followed by an appointment of secretary and treasurer. At this time, I'd like to ask for nominations for the office of board president. No second is required. Any second to the motion simply indicates the endorsement of the candidate, and the floor is now open to multiple nominations at this time. Starting with Board of Education president.
Tiffany, I would like to make a motion to nominate and elect Tiffany Upchurch as board president.
Are there any other nominations for board president? Seeing none, Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Ms. Dr. Shank?
Aye.
And Ms. Upchurch?
I will abstain. All right, at this time, I would like to open up the floor for nominations for the position of vice president to the board.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Norris for the role of Vice President of Board of Directors.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Seeing none, the floor is now closed for vice president. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. So now I'd like to make a motion to nominate and elect 2 members for treasurer and for secretary. Ms. Shank, would you be willing to take on the position of secretary?
I would.
Ms. Wood, do we need a vote, I believe?
Yes. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Abstain.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. Mr. Schwartz, would you be willing to take on the position as the board's treasurer?
You okay with that, Mr. Ridgway? Noting that Mr. Ridgway abstains, yes.
Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Abstain.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. At this time, we actually also need to appoint and state our nomination for our assistant to treasurer and assistant to secretary. So I'd like to appoint Mr. Brett Ridgway to serve as assistant treasurer to the board, if the board would agree by consensus. Yes?
Aye.
I would also like to appoint Ms. Vicki Wood to serve as assistant secretary to the board with the board agreement by consensus.
Concur.
Okay. Congratulations. Mr. Brown, you will be serving as director at large. We got lots on your plate for you. And also I want to point out that when we're doing this, I want to make sure that we as a board are working on a process of successful succession. I've got 2 years left, and we've got some excellent board members. Any of us could have served in this position. They're just titles. Each and every one of us has an equal voice and has an equal leadership role on this board and in this district. No one board member speaks on behalf of the entire board. So I look forward to, as we continue to develop and grow and see other board members move into other positions into the future. So thank you so much, and I'm excited. I am extremely excited. So moving to item B3, we're not done yet. We have some affidavits of confidentiality that our board members will need to sign. Ms. Wood, would you please distribute the affidavit of confidentiality to each of our board members? And then I'd like to ask that the members of the board take a few brief moments to read and then sign these documents. The affidavit has to be signed during our organizational meeting, which we're doing right now, and copies will be kept on file. And Ms. Wood is also our notary public. Did I say republic?
For which it stands.
Ms. Wood is our notary public, and she will be asking the board as a group to respond with an aye in an oral statement of affirmation after we've all signed our affidavits. Once we have a pen that works. There we go.
I don't have a presidential pen.
Ms. Wood?
This one.
Ms. Wood, here's the other ones.
There's one more.
I do. Aye.
I
Yes,
do.
I do.
Okay, breathe. We're done with the first part, and now we move on to our work session. And again, I want to say a heartfelt congratulations and welcome to the team.
Ms. Upchurch, could we potentially have just a few minutes for setup? We've got our presenters here, but we need to kind of cue the room to get them ready. So if we can just take a few minutes to do that, that'd be outstanding.
No, we're running behind.
Well, in that case,
Yes, sir, please.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Morning. I'm so excited and looking forward to this presentation. It's been a journey.
It has.
So let's kick it off.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, good morning to the Board of Education. Congratulations to those that have been appointed, those that have returned, those in new roles. We've been excited. I know a lot of us here have been a part of that journey as well over the last 2 or 3 years. So we're happy to see that rise, and we're looking forward to this. So thank you again for that time. Once again, we're with Schneider Electric. My name is Will Benish. I'm a program manager with Schneider Electric, and I'll let the rest of my team introduce themselves.
Brian Toast, I'm our construction program manager for the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm Dave Gordon. I'm our regional performance manager, and I'll be talking about what we're going to be doing with you guys after now that the construction project is over, the services associated with that.
And you've probably seen John and I, for those that have been on the board, John and I over the last few years walking through the construction progress of our energy services performance contract. But this has been a journey, a lot of collaboration between the Board of Education and our team to get to this point. And we're happy to say we're finally at that closeout period. We're going to talk through really the story of this project from start to finish. I think we have about 30 minutes allocated with some questions and answers as well. Actually, we also have Kelsey Gorman on the call, who is the head of our measurement verification team. Kelsey, do you want to just introduce yourself real quick, just to make sure the volume works?
Sure, I'm Kelsey Gorman. I am Energy Performance Specialist, also known as Measurement and Verification for this project.
Does Kelsey sound okay from y'all's perspective?
We'll get Mark on it.
Okay, awesome. Well, Kelsey and Dave will really be serving really the roles and responsibility from here on out in terms of this project initiative on the back end as construction is now wrapped up. You've seen John, myself, and Brian involved on the front end, so we'll be able to share exactly the roles and responsibilities as we go forward. Wonderful. So we will get started. Taking a look at our agenda real quick. Just to provide some clarification, this first agenda, as we call it, I like to consider the part one of this discussion. We're going to be speaking through the beginning of our pre-development journey with Lewis Palmer School District, how that began, how we made the transition into the construction period, and from there, I'll turn it over to Dave and Kelsey to speak through the client services and measurement and verification side. Dr. Somers, just to confirm, if there are questions, should we wait till the end, or would you think we should have folks?
Well, I think since we're in a work session type format, it would probably be beneficial to allow any of our board to just go ahead and raise questions as we're going through. We'll do our best to keep things moving along. And just to be clear, we actually booked a full hour, no longer than an hour. So we're right on schedule. I think we were aiming for 9:30 to be able to get to our other work session items. So please feel free to dive in.
Wonderful. Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll get started. So for those that aren't familiar with our team, who is Schneider Electric? Well, as it says up there, we're an energy services provider. We provide capital recovery and reinvestment programs for Colorado school districts. We work alongside in partnership with the Colorado Energy Office underneath the governor's office to perform this exact work. We focus on work that develops energy efficiency and sustainability measures, but in the process reduce utility costs and operational deficiencies. So we'll talk through the program and the project at Lewis Palmer School District today that speaks through that program and how the Energy Office's involvement played a major role. We've been in this business for a long time. We work in most states throughout the United States. I have the pleasure of working here in Colorado with only school districts, and it's a great pleasure. We've implemented nearly 1,000 projects across the nation. We've been in this industry a while, and we also do a lot of fun stuff, like having day of service projects at Lewis Palmer High School. And we have the benefit of that partnership with the Energy Office to ensure that there is that third-party oversight to make sure that the work that we're conducting with the school district is meeting their standards, their statutes, and expectations. So we'll talk more about that today as well. So where did the partnership begin between Lewis Palmer and Schneider Electric? Back in, I believe it was summer of 2020, Dr. Somers, we had our initial conversation. It was really the heart of COVID, wanting to understand really where major deficiency issues were at the school district. There was a lot of uncertainty on what was coming next, but Dr. Somers made it loud and clear that the concerns that they had were not changing. They were only getting worse. They needed support financially to improve their operational deficiencies. So throughout our development process, we focused on 4 main concerns. First being with belated security measures. That was heard loud and clear, really where the safety needs, especially at 3 of the schools that we'll speak through today, and where we made implementation and construction measures from there. Now, you think of safety and security, not directly associated with energy efficiency, but we'll talk through how those measures are offsetting some of those energy savings themselves. Alongside that, staff and faculty complaints. This is probably the most heard thing that I'm sure you can imagine: comfort complaints, hot and cold inside classrooms, old fluorescent lighting, things that are standing out, making classroom experiences for students and for faculty and staff not as pleasurable as they need to be. So that was a big focus of ours when we talked about improving the learning environment. Limited funding, taking a look at the last time the district had taxpayer support, where were they going to find the dollars to improve operational efficiencies? So they looked at this program as an alternative measure to make the most of that dollar. And then desire, of course, for additional transparency with D38 constituents. There was a lot of input from stakeholders across the district throughout the development process, internally and external, of the school district to get to the scope of work that got us here today. So these 4 measures were the ones that led us through our auditing process, our construction process, and now for our measurement and verification period. So how does our program work? I've used this illustration many times, and I know some of you here have seen this illustration before. I think this is the most digestible way to understand this. So Energy Services Performance Contracting, a program here in Colorado, again, a way to make the most of school district's dollars when they don't have out-of-pocket dollars, when they need to use the deferred maintenance that they have inside of their classrooms in order to fund these major needs. So when we came into Lewis Palmer School District, we took a baseline of their utility costs. How much are they spending on their electricity, natural gas, water, and as well as their operational bills. So we took that baseline. I believe it was the years of 2018 and 2019. We were holding off on 2020 due to COVID's unique nature there. We took that baseline to see how much was being spent, and our team made recommendations on efficiency measures and operational improvements that we knew would save utility costs, would save operational dollars. Our team guarantees the savings that are made in those utility cost deficiencies. So if we tell you you're going to save $100,000 in a single year, you're going to see $100,000 off of your utility costs. If you do not see $100,000 off your utility costs, we will write a check to cover the difference. That is the main benefit, the cost-neutral approach that makes energy performance contracting beneficial for school districts when they don't have $1 million out of pocket to pay for their largest needs. So you'll see in the after column, after we make those recommendations, you will see the utility costs decrease, your energy bills go down, your operational spend go down, and the payments for the work themselves, the brand new lighting, the brand new equipment inside the buildings, is paid for through the energy savings, through the cost avoidance that is led there. It's a cost-neutral approach, and we'll talk about the different funding methods, and I know Mr. Ridgway was very involved in terms of that, those different funding methods that we'll talk through. So on the right-hand column there, you'll see that we're looking at reducing D38's annual utility costs by 22%. We are looking at a 20-year term in terms of measuring these energy and operational savings. This is based on the weighted average useful life of the equipment that we're installing. So all the different measures that we'll show you, averaging around 20 years, we expect to see nearly $3 million in additional savings that will be captured for the school district after the 20th year is conducted throughout the rest of the life. Yes, Dr. Schwartz.
What do you anticipate as the net useful life if we're expecting an extra $2.7 million in savings after year 20?
So we know in our contract with the school district, there is a schedule directly called the weighted average useful life. And I believe the average useful life is around 24.5 years for all the equipment combined. So the term length, and we'll talk about the different funding methods, it's through a form of financing, is 20 years conducted. That's where we're measuring the savings. But after that 20th year, even though we're not measuring those savings anymore, we expect probably another 4 to 5 years of savings captured, which would equate to the 2.7 million that are located there.
Is that pretty close to 20% of the total dollars saved in the 20-year performance window?
About so, I would say. If we're talking about nearly $10 million in total life cycle savings, I would say around 20%.
Okay.
Great question.
Well, it maps to,
Yeah,
right, an
absolutely.
extra 20% of a year, so
And we'll show the savings
it would be
composition.
logical if once the thing was turned on and working properly, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And just once more mentioning, our team is pre-qualified with the Colorado Energy Office. This is a stringent qualification process. There's only 10 other organizations here in the state of Colorado, as well in the United States, that can perform this kind of work. And with that partnership, we are pretty much allowed to do this work with other school districts and public entities. So you won't see, you know, I would say, you know, mom and pop subcontractors walking in with you know, maybe not the capabilities of organizations that can take on this kind of work. It's a stringent approval process, and it's approved every 5 years. So we are in, I believe, our second full cycle with the Colorado Energy Office in that partnership. They provide excellent services to school districts. Not every state offers an energy office to support school districts. It's a free service. They provide third-party engineering, of course, review of our work. You know, of course, any questions that school districts have and they want to reach out to the state agency directly, they're at your disposal. So that's an excellent added benefit that not every state gets to have.
Well, Will, if I could, I really appreciate this slide and that chart, because every once in a while I get questions on how much is this going to help put money back into classrooms, and the answer is none, right, for this first 20 years. It's just a reallocation of costs. So there is no financial benefit. There is a perceptual benefit. There's green, carbon footprint type of stuff that you can assign to it. But in terms of actual financial benefit, it's just, and that's why he says cost neutral. That's really what we need to keep in mind. There is nothing that's going to come into the classroom for the first 20 years, as long as the financing is in place.
Thank you, Brett.
So may I add to that?
Yes, please.
Especially for the new board members. At the end of the day, this is a reasonable financial deal and a wonderful operational deal. This enabled us to do a lot of things that would have taken us years to do, and a lot of cash allocation, and put it all into one project that got done in a 24-month window that has significant impact in areas that are important not just to us, to our community and our staff and our students, like physical safety and reducing our carbon footprint. So we were able to, at the end of the day, you're going to see a lot of statistics here. At the end of the day, we were able to enhance safety, quality of life, reduce carbon footprint for a fiscal deal that was decent, not wonderful. And it also allowed us to maintain some of our cash position at currently 5% return, where the money we borrowed to do this is, what, 2.5 points, more or less?
Yep.
So there's some side benefit here. But Mr. Ridgway is right. This was really not a fiscally driven project. It's an operationally driven project that we found a fiscal way to do that was very reasonable.
And if I could share, when we looked at this project, also one of the things that was very attractive about it was we had a need. We had 3 schools that were lacking in some safety and security measures. And how could we address that in a creative way that was cost neutral? And this was a perfect way to not only save on our footprint and save on our energy, have energy savings, but also the ability to increase the security and get those vestibules built as well, using the savings to fund those 3 projects.
I'm sorry, that's not quite correct. The savings, we contributed $1.7 million of cash, which is what did a lot of the security work.
Yes.
Yeah. The financing that did the electrical on this, the savings from the electrical just goes to paying the financing for the electrical.
Right.
So
Wait.
There was no savings from the electrical that's contributing to the security.
So, but it's tied together.
As in, because it's the same vendor, yes.
But as I recall when we had that discussion, that what was attractive, as one board member, what was attractive to me was the idea that we were not going to have to. We originally went to taxpayers asking for taxpayers to fund these vestibules, and that didn't happen during that bond campaign. That was one of the things that we had talked about. The very first one was increasing the security, the MLO, when I first got elected. And then from there, we still had the need to address that. And how did we do that in a cost-efficient manner? And so, as I understood it, was that the long-range savings that will come from the energy savings is what was going to go into making it an affordable project. Am I?
Just to echo what Mr. Ridgway's point was, the original down payment that was made as part of the financial agreement in order to execute not only the energy savings aspect of this project, but the additional security vestibule project work did not come from a separate pot of savings.
No, I understand that.
Yep. So I think what it represented was a chance for us to accelerate the completion of something that we knew was still deficient in 3 of our buildings. And Schneider presented themselves as a partner in that process. Given the work that we were pursuing, we built that into our negotiation, which allowed us to get the work completed over the summer of 2021. So you're right, but it wasn't, again, just to reiterate, it was not savings that allowed us to pursue that work. It was the fiscal deal as it was presented.
And leveraging that existing relationship with the vendor.
And I think Will's next few slides will help clarify this a little bit more, because we're kind of talking around it. So let's just keep moving through the presentation from that angle.
Absolutely. Thank you. As a refresh and an introduction to the newer board members, back in those initial discussions, there were, I believe, 8 or 9 different strategic goals the school district had at the time, refined at this point, but our team focused on 3 in particular that we saw direct correlation with this program process. 1, 4, and 5, first being associated with really creating welcoming, safe, and healthy school environments, which is exactly the goals that we try and take on as well in terms of improving those learning environments when it comes to deferred maintenance and deficiencies. Ensuring effective asset management and efficient use of resources. I think about this from the message of what is the cost of doing nothing. If nothing was done back in 2021 in terms of developing this scope, utility costs have risen tremendously since that time, if you're all familiar with how utility costs have risen. As I'm sure you also understand, that the cost of labor, cost of materials, the advantageous opportunity at that time to take advantage of this initiative to get all this work done now versus chipping away at it over the next 10, 15 years when the funding would become available. This was a very cost-efficient way to leverage that work and take advantage of it. And lastly, forging strong community relationships and fostering effective communication. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a few slides around how our team did communicate with folks in and out of the school district to determine the most optimal scope of work. So outside of those 4, I think, check marks that I had on there, really this is how we made a connection to the school district's mission and vision, where that direct correlation lied. So again, more the umbrella as to how we determined and allowed the district to determine what the right scope of work would be. Okay, a lot of text up here. This is our scope of work. These are the initiatives and measures that were taken on in this project. Top columns being the listed out schools, of course, and sites. And the rows that are listed out are the categorized scope measures. And we've broken them out into 4 major categories. Really, one of the major categories being lighting improvements. So you could see the 3 different measures within lighting. These are huge energy savers. These are the things that are driving utility cost savings, helping pay for some of the other mechanical work that you're going to see in this scope matrix. Alongside is the building automation system, really a major measure to speak about in this program. We're talking about improving comfort, climate, improving temperature swings, and reducing the amount of building automation platforms at the school district. This was a huge headache for the operations team when we came in. So our team really did a full replacement and conversion of their automation platforms to make it as optimal and efficient as possible. This was also a major savings driver for the school district. In terms of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, you could see certain measures that are added there, including the replacement of a boiler that I believe was supported through the BEST grant. Talking about adding variable frequency drives, efficiency measures to their air handling units, a few other measures there that I'd let my very smart engineers dive into when they'd like to. But really a major focus on HVAC, determining, hey, a lot of these measures typically approved in a bond initiative. These are heavy capital measures. There aren't a lot of energy savings that drive these measures. So how can we offset those costs? Well, we use the lighting and building automation system to offset a lot of those costs. Yes, Dr. Stings.
Just for the new folks, we also have geothermal at Palmer Ridge. So there's a little bit of diversity in terms of how energy is brought to the structures, and especially the high schools. If you look at the amount of square footage and the amount of cubic feet of air that must be moved on a daily basis while there's humans in those buildings, it's noteworthy.
I believe it's the second largest geothermal project in the state, besides IKEA.
It was the biggest in southern Colorado when it was built. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, that's true. Very fair. Well, great point. Thank you for mentioning that. And then under miscellaneous, first off, some water conservation measures. Converting to low-flow bathroom fixtures was a great energy saver opportunity. Plug load controls, basically these little outlets that we would install to certain equipment inside of schools, regular everyday equipment, copiers, printers, vending machines that really, conserved energy, put machines on standby when they're not in use, make it more efficient, and allow us to save some dollars that way. And then really two major capital expenses being the installation of the security vestibules and construction of interior security walls, all fall under the same umbrella of this project initiative. I'll stop there for a second if there's any questions around this long list of scope measures there. Well, to associate with the scope of work, we wanted to share the breakout pricing and savings analysis for District 38. I know Brett's looking at this, making sure every number on here is correct. That's fair. So we did break it out, as you saw in the last slide, with the different scope categories. The rows are the same here, but the columns look a bit different. So that first column after the first row is tagged as price. This is the price of the scope that we had in this project initiative. So you can see at the very bottom of that first column, a total price is around $9.13 million. There was also $75,000 allocated for contingency dollars associated with this project. That's not listed here. The IGA fee is the cost of the audit that we executed over about a 6-month window. That fee is determined by the Colorado Energy Office, not our team itself. So that was a fee that was included and rolled into the cost of the project. But you could see the breakout pricing for each of the major scope items that are listed up there. As you follow along, the annual utility savings, that's also known as the first year utility cost savings. So these are raw energy savings that you see directly from your utility cost expenditures that are reduced in the first year when this project is implemented. And I believe as of December 1, that first year has begun. So at this time next year, on December 1, we will be able to see those savings recognized. In the first year operation and maintenance savings, these are not raw energy savings. These are savings that are accepted by the school district from an operations standpoint. So an example of this would be the school district no longer has to replace old fluorescent lighting tubes that are expensive and are replaced far more often because they have a shorter lifespan. Now that they have LED lighting in there, lasts a lot longer. The cost is relevant. And from there, the operation team no longer has to replace and pay for old fluorescent tubes. So there is a cost savings that is captured through that way. So that method is transitioned through the different scope measures that you'll see in that column, totaling to around $58,000 in the first year at the end of that first year cycle. In that fourth column, total annual savings, total first-year annual savings are totaling around $350,000 that the district will see in utility costs and operational savings after that full first year. In our last column, life cycle savings, this is a 20-year life cycle, as we're calling it, the 20-year life cycle guarantee. And throughout those 20 years, throughout the utility costs escalation that was agreed with the school district, as well as the annual savings increasing, we're looking at just under $9.9 million guaranteed that will be saved for the school district that we use right now to help pay for this scope.
So doesn't that go into my first question of the price versus the life cycle savings?
I see what she's saying. Yes.
I guess,
Total savings captured over the 20 years.
right. Yeah, because what's included in the price column is the financing, which was $7.4 million worth of financing, and then $1.7 million worth of other source, $1 million of it being cash from the district, and $700,000 being from ESSER and BEST grant programs. There we go.
So the next slide there is the different funding breakout for this. So as Brett was mentioning there, the total financing amount is just around $7.4 million. It's primarily driven as a financing method called the tax exempt lease purchase agreement. And like that bar chart I showed earlier, in that after bar illustration, as we want to call it, the savings themselves are the payment for the work from the financing is covered by the utility costs and operational savings, as shown there.
So it's designed to be a net zero.
Right.
Yeah.
Zero. Yes.
But with
couple-
the other money too.
A couple quick things just to make sure we're all clear. The $7.422 million includes all the interest?
No, that's the principal.
Okay. So how much are we paying in interest?
2.3 million.
Okay.
That's the maximum. We do have an early payment option. I can cut that down to about $1 million, starting in 2026. And so if we can, between now and then, basically come up with about $6.5 million worth of cash to pay early, then we can cut off $1.3 million worth of interest.
Yeah. So on 1.3 is roughly 24% return.
Mhm.
Okay. And right now we're getting 5% on our money. Yeah. So something worth
5.5,
consideration.
yeah.
Yeah. So certainly something worth consideration.
Absolutely.
So that's item one. Item two is everybody familiar with a lease purchase program? Todd, I know you are because you do it all day long at work. Okay. So what's the purchase? Is it a dollar buyout at the end of the program? What's the dollar purchase amount?
I don't know if I understand your
Is
question.
this a lease or is it a purchase?
The
Finance
lease purchase.
Right. Right.
It's a capital lease, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a capital lease.
Right.
Yes.
But if it's a lease purchase, then there's a buyout amount in the contract. Is
Right.
there a buyout amount at the end of the contract? And if so, how much is it?
To this point, like, if you're buying capital equipment, usually at the end of the lease, during a lease, the equipment still belongs to you guys. So at the end of the lease, we would want to purchase it or we have to give it back. So
Right.
typically,
Yeah, I don't,
typically-
I'm sorry, I don't know what the end of term buyout is. It probably is $1.
Neither do I. But I'll check. I can check with Kim Albertson.
I just want to make sure it's not a large amount.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Usually, it's a nominal amount to
Mhm.
meet the federal guidelines for a lease.
Mhm.
And a capital lease means that the leasor gets depreciation on it, which is irrelevant for us. Very relevant in what you do. And an operating lease means the financing entity holds title and gets the fiscal benefit of depreciation.
That's right.
And usually, to meet those rules, there has to be a buyout amount. Not always, but usually. I just want to
I
make
don't
sure it's
recall
not.
seeing a buyout amount. Yeah.
You
I don't
think it's a
believe there
straight
is.
capital lease with
Yes.
240 equal payments?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I don't ever.
One other thing that I wanted to mention is, as we go to the previous slide, we're anticipating, or we're guaranteeing just under $300,000 in annual utility savings. At the end of each year, we're going to reconcile our performance. It's my hope that we come out of year one with $350,000 in utility savings. But that's where my team will come in and look at our energy conservation measures and work with the facilities to capture as much savings as possible. This is just what's guaranteed. Suppose we only save $250,000, you guys would be owed a $47,000 check, which makes us
That's a great point, Dave. Thank you for bringing that up. During our investment grade audit, we spent a lot of time with the Board of Education speaking through what's guaranteed versus what is projected. Our team will not guarantee 100% of the savings every single time because there is absolutely a liability where if it's 99%, okay, we're going to be writing a lot of checks. So our guarantee is cushioned between what is most likely projected, what the district will more than likely see. So in our savings composition slide, you're going to see the word projected that's shared. Those are the savings that the district will most likely see above and beyond that guarantee. That is the minimum amount that we must meet every single year, but the district will more than likely see more than that. And Dave's team focuses on following that trend to ensure that you're kept in the loop if things are trending in the right direction. Right. Yeah, your savings. That's right.
And those were the points that spoke to me. There's a lot of people in this room that are much more brilliant than I am and understand bars and graphs and much better than I do. But it was the annual savings and that guarantee part of it that spoke to me and makes a difference in when I voted yes for this. That was something that was important.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So if there are no other questions, we will continue. This next subcategory, as we're calling, is called savings composition. How are we doing on time, by the way? Okay.
You're fine.
Thank you. Man, I said 30 minutes. That's crazy. The slides below represent what savings have been captured, and I will correct this. It says solely during construction installation. There are a few slides that categorize that, but these are also showing life cycle savings, life cycle projected savings. So we'll talk through those as well. So the first one on here is a breakdown. I apologize, that chart is a bit small in text there. But the 20-year projected savings, so the life cycle savings over that 20-year period. In the guarantee, we showed a number, I believe around $9.898 million that are guaranteed in this project. But what is projected, to see what the district will more than likely see, is closer to $10.8 million that are projected. And this was developed by Kelsey, who I know is on the phone here, and she'll talk about that in a little bit. You could see the scope categories that are broken out by color there. And you're probably wondering, oh, why is vestibule on there? Well, the security vestibule does have a very, very minimal energy and operational savings measure when it comes to a building envelope improvement. So in terms of door ceilings, in terms of air infiltration, I don't know if you want to add anything on to that. No, you've got it exactly right. I'm trying my best. But you could see that breakout associated from a 20-year life cycle stance. And on the next one here, we show that year over year through the life of the project as well. So you could see how the savings escalate over the 20 years. And again, this follows the projected savings totaling up to the nearly $10.8 million in each of those categories. So obviously lighting and building automation system, you see, have the largest chunk of those savings being the most cost efficient.
Quick question on this. I assume this takes into effect some kind of an acceleration ratio for
Yes.
public utility costs.
We utilized a utility escalation rate of 3.33% on average, and this was back in 2021. In terms of how the energy and operational savings are being calculated, we're now seeing utility escalation rates well over 5%. So this is a conservative approach in terms of escalating those savings at this point. But you'll see in many other energy performance contracts, you'll see a higher utility escalation rate.
Right. So yeah, that maps to some of the enhanced savings that we should theoretically see in this. And the other thing is, Brett, keep me honest here. 3.3 over 20 years is about a 20-year doubling rate, because 7 over 10 is about a, right, 7% is about a 10-year doubling rate. So is that about right?
Rule of sevens is, yeah, 7 over 7 years is double.
Yeah.
So it's more like 14,
Right.
almost 21.
Right, so if we were paying $20,000 a month for electricity now, in
20 years,
2040-ish,
it would have been 60.
yeah. So that also plays into this number.
It's not ideal.
And for us, we need to think of it in terms of saving money and buying power today,
Yes.
right? So if we have an extra $10,000 that we can use today, it's the equivalent to $40,000 in 2040. Even though we won't be here to see it, somebody will be here to benefit from it. That's why we do this stuff. Okay, Tiffany, you'll be here to see it. You and I are.
Yeah. And we don't go anywhere either. I mean, we stick around through the life of this thing. So even if I'm not here, Dave will for sure be here. But people from our team will absolutely. That's a part of this initiative, creating a partnership. And I know Director Schwartz requested this slide. I know this one's an impactful one, but a question that came up throughout this process that we can now answer is talking about really when the projection is for the payoff, you would say, where we can achieve full payback of this project. And based on the price of the project, it's projected year 17 that the project will be in a way paid off in terms of where the project savings and cost come into alignment there. Kelsey, I'm going to turn it to you for a second. Can you speak to how this slide was developed in terms of the project payback slide?
Sure. So this slide is essentially the same as the last one with your projected savings, just not in pretty bar chart form. And then it's just compared to the cost of the overall project. And then I found the point where those two lines cross, and that would be your payback about midway through year 17 projected.
Thank you.
Sure.
Kelsey, I'll let you take the next one as well. And could you possibly provide a little insight on the slide that's option C, meter reduction?
So the way that we measure savings for this project is largely through a method called option C. That just means that we are looking at your utility bills, essentially. That's a very simple way to explain it. Throughout construction, I have looked at the utility meters that we're tracking, which would be the largest savers, the largest meters. And I found that several of them, even though the guarantee year had not started yet, this is through September because that was the most updated bills I had at the time. Even though the project has not officially started its guarantee period, 5 of the meters are already performing very well. They're very close to what we expected as the year 1 reduction. So what that means is at the end of year 1, we would expect that middle column to be accurate. And then the rightmost column is what we're seeing right now. So I think we're on a good track. Several meters have some improvements to be made. That's normal. We'll keep tracking those as the year goes along, and hopefully at the end of year 1, they'll be right in line with that middle column, the expected reduction.
Question for you, Kelsey.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. This is Ron. Is there any sensitivity to those reductions based on seasonality? In other words, now that we're in cold winter months, are we comparing? You haven't had a lot of time to compare. I'm just curious, is there any elasticity associated with seasonality? How's that?
So overall, this is an annual amount, so it shouldn't matter. Now during year 1, it's going to be a little bit sensitive to seasonality depending on when I'm looking at it. So if I look at it in February and I've got some winter months in there that might not have performed so well, and I don't have any months that are not winter that have scope completed, it might not look as great. But at the end of year 1 and then going forward, after the scope has been fully completed for a full 12 months, then it shouldn't really have any sensitivity to weather.
Okay,
It's just a
so
little bit of
on
a
a,
transition period.
just so I'm clear, I believe what we heard is on a macro basis, the answer is no.
Yes.
You mean correct? Thank you.
So if I'm looking at that slide, some of our buildings, if I'm understanding this correct, some of our buildings are, the percent of reduction is actually more than was expected. And then we have some work to do in some of our other buildings.
Right, I'll mention, this is through September of this year.
Okay.
And there were many schools where we hadn't actually implemented schedules and set points. And so Kelsey just thought it was worth pointing out that even before we really tightened some screws, we were already seeing a great amount of success at several facilities.
So for example, this time next year, those Prairie Winds Elementary School numbers should be completely different than what we're looking at right now.
That would be our hope, but in an effort of transparency, we just wanted to show you guys
Fair enough.
real numbers.
Understood.
Kelsey, do you want to break down the installation savings slide on the following?
Of course. So the installation savings would be everything that has been achieved from the very first scope being completed. That's how we determine it. The installation savings are real, they're not projected. That comes from actual lighting and water measurements and calculation, as well as the utility bills. So what you've achieved through September, and I apologize, I didn't put a number on there, but I can tell you. It is $237,925. So that is the good cushion that we'll be starting out the guarantee period with. So that's just kind of bonus savings when it comes to the guarantee.
And the guarantee is what again?
The guarantee is that
For energy
just
savings
un-
is
that- just under that $300,000 annually, and so.
She's just referring to the installation savings.
Right, I
These are
understand that.
just
Yeah, yeah.
Before it even begins.
Yep.
Yeah, the guarantee for year one is $356,172, just for reference.
Next.
Okay.
This slide takes those installation savings and those numbers are calculated based on your kilowatt hour reduction, your natural gas reduction on your bills. So we take those numbers straight from your bills, and using the Department of Energy, there's a tool that can tell you equivalents, because most people don't know what a kilowatt hour is or easily understand the impact of a kilowatt hour. And so you can see, just based on our installation savings through December, we have reduced your carbon footprint by 1,381 metric tons of CO2 emissions, which equates to, for example, 174 homes energy use per year, or over 167 million mobile phones being charged. Just the reduction in energy that you guys have achieved. This is pretty popular for our clients to share on social media or put it on your website. I think it just shows that you're being good stewards of your facilities and taking care of the environment as well.
And like it does say, I mean, every year, especially in that turnover, these metrics will be updated. These are also not the only 5 metrics that can be included. I've seen other conversions, really whatever is a catered message that you think will work best. We can absolutely make that conversion met and you know, really show off your environmental stewardship, fiscal stewardship, however you want to measure it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, with that, we will transition to construction, to our main man, John. I'm sure with support from Chris. John and Chris have become good friends over the last few years. And John's going to kick things off and speak through some of our completion dates.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here with Chris and the milestone. It was a challenging project. With the issues with COVID and things of that nature, it created some problems with construction for the new members of the board. We had issues with material procurements. We had issues with acquiring labor and subcontractors. It was very challenging to get this project rolling and keep it rolling. Focused as much as we could initially. The contract started in May of 21. We focused on the security for the students as quickly as possible that summer. Got as much as done as we could possibly get done and got it functional to where the security was actually working for the students. That December, we rolled into the plumbing upgrades, the water reduction measures, and installed 288 valve rebuilds, 142 valve replacements, and various other components as part of that project. We also focused on the plug load scope of work, which is little devices that turn off, say, air conditioning units and Coke machines, things of that nature. We installed 122 of those devices across the district. The lighting upgrades, we got started in March of 2022. We had some issues with material procurement. We focused on the lighting as strongly as we could to get it done as quickly as we could. We reached a 95% completion very quickly. We were done by May of that year, 95% of the lighting. So that's how you're seeing the projected energy savings for the installation costs. The majority of that is coming from the lighting scope of work. Automation project, it took quite a while longer. We had material procurement issues. We had subcontractor issues on the team, qualified and quality work. We worked through that. We have delivered a high-quality project. It took a lot longer than we anticipated. We initially thought we were going to complete in December of 2022. Obviously, now we are in December of 2023. We focus on the quality and not the time. At Schneider Electric, we try not to make the schedule a hard, fast date. We are more concerned about delivering the proper quality that we expect. The automation systems, I think Chris is very happy with it. They're top world-class type of automation systems. They work really well. They provide the maintenance team a lot of insight into what's going on in their schools. Saves quite a bit of time and energy resolving problems. We installed 550 room sensors, 402 control valves as part of that BAS automation project. The VFDs that we installed 23 VFDs across the district. It was at 3 sites. That's an energy reduction measure on the air handlers, the main air handling equipment. We installed 2 boilers to replace some deficient boilers with high efficiency boilers. All of the systems across the district were commissioned. That is required by the Colorado Energy Office. A very detailed commissioning process was implemented on all of these scopes of work. And Chris has been delivered with the commissioning report. And he has the operations of O&M manuals. At this point, we are, as of December 1st, we are 100% complete, other than 2 minor exclusions that we included in our completion letter. One of them has to do with the Lewis Palmer Elementary School vestibule, completing some work out there. And we also have a deficiency at the high school, Lewis Palmer High School, and some volume dampers that we're looking for some details to get it right for the district.
Thank you, John. We'll share some photos. As you can imagine, our security vestibules. Lewis Palmer Elementary, Bear Creek, and Prairie Winds. And we'll share more as well. This is just a glimpse. Those guys look happy. Some gym lighting, continuing exterior lighting, building automation work.
One thing to point out there is the center pictures. You can see the condition of an automation panel at the top and what we delivered to the district down below. So it's quite a difference in
Absolutely.
how it's installed. You can also see the boilers on the right. The top ones are the old boilers and the new ones are down below. Much more efficient, look a lot better.
I have a question. You had mentioned that some of the hiccups that you ran into were things like procuring labor. materials, that nature. How much did we have to rely on in-district staff to partner with Snyder in getting some of that work done, or was that completely all you guys? I would have just common sense would make me think that there was a combination and a partnership, but I'm not sure, so I'm just asking.
Absolutely.
Part of our contract excludes existing deficiencies or existing problems with mechanical equipment and things of that nature. The school district was very cooperating with us in getting things corrected and get things working properly. But they really did not have to expend any labor or time on the construction side of it. It was entirely on our team.
Just out of raw curiosity, the control box on the middle top, is that an old punch down wire box? And
No,
if-
you mean like a telephone punch?
Yeah.
No, that is an automation panel with relays and pneumatic devices, and it's, if you tried to troubleshoot that, probably pull your hair out.
Or fry it.
Yeah.
What year,
That was a kind of
what
shows
era
the
is,
difficulty of the work that we had to go through. We had to gut that panel. and
Yeah.
start over.
what era is that from?
The 1900s.
Say the 80s, 70s, and 80s.
I don't know which school that's
The
in.
majority of your schools, and that was part of one of our scopes, was eliminating pneumatics. So eliminating pneumatics is air pressurized controls.
Mm-hmm.
We have eliminated all the pneumatics to where no compressor is needed at any of the schools. It's a pretty big challenge getting in and replacing valves across every school. You have to run wires to the valves and cut off the pneumatics and go to the panels. It's quite a coordinating nightmare, and Chris understands that. It's fun to go in there and try and keep things running for the students while you're installing brand new controls. It's quite a headache sometimes.
Changing the tires while the car's moving.
Thank you, John. A few more photos here. And just to break it out, this is a breakout of June 22 to September 23 of the achieved utility cost savings per date. As Kelsey mentioned, the $237,000 that have been, as you can see, mainly achieved through lighting efficiency measures.
So this is just pretty much a year from one year to the next, 2022 to 2023.
About a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. And I believe. No, I don't want to speak. I don't want to say anything wrong. I was going to think. I thought I had the updated to December, but I don't want to get that number wrong. So we'll stick with 237 for now. I know for the sake of time, we will expedite through these last two components here. I have Kelsey on the line, and I know Dave just shot her a quick text, just sort of making our way through measurement and verification. Kelsey is our measurement and verification lead. She is speaking through how the savings are measured throughout the life of the project. So I will kick it over to her with the acronyms. Acronyms there.
So these acronyms, I won't go through all of them. They're just for your reference. I know there's an appendix on these slides, so if you're curious and you're going through, hopefully these will help understand. We use a ton of acronyms, so wanted to spell those out. On the next slide, I've got construction completion progress. I think the vestibule might have been finished up. You guys probably already talked about that.
There are a few small exclusions that were included in the performance period where we still need to finish work at Lewis Palmer Elementary School, and I believe now a few deficiencies at Lewis Palmer High.
Impact on energy savings.
Yep, no impact on energy savings.
Perfect. Okay, great. So on the next slide, it just goes through a 10,000-foot view of how savings are calculated. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's your baseline, so before we came into the picture, minus the performance period, also called the guarantee period, plus or minus any adjustments. And those adjustments just help us keep everything as focused on the project as possible. So we don't want to factor in any changes outside of the project. And the next slide just kind of goes through that in a little bit more detail. So for the sake of time, I'll go through to the pie chart.
Yep.
This just separates your utility types as far as savings go. These are your projected savings for a year. Just broken out to show you that the majority are coming from electric. Quite a bit is coming from operations and maintenance. That typically happens when we replace lights. So those lights can get expensive to replace, and the LEDs will really reduce that cost. A little bit from water and a small amount from gas as well.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, again, my name is Dave Horton. I run our client services group for the West Region. I kind of want to talk a little bit, at a high level, what do things look like moving forward? And really, I want you to understand that what I'm here for, what my team is here for, is to protect your investment in this project, number one. Keep faculty and students comfortable and reduce the burden on the facilities team and maintenance team. So, I'll go through some of the services that we're going to be providing over the next, hopefully, 20 years to help, again, ensure energy savings, but also to keep the staff comfortable and the students comfortable. So we have a 24/7 remote support line. Sometimes I'm in front of boards giving presentations and I'm not able to answer the phone, or after hours, Mr. Coulter may have something come up. He could call from his home or the beach or up in the mountains. Our engineers that are waiting for, and they have direct access to y'all's VPN so that they can tunnel in and resolve issues if maybe we have, suppose you have a basketball tournament at one of the high schools that we forgot to schedule. We can easily get in and do that with our engineers. We'll be on site. It's like 4 times in year 1, and this is to help really resolve any automation issues that may come up, as well as just general warranty support. So if we have any lighting fixtures go out, or some of our variable frequency drives, if those are acting up, we continue to support the team and make sure that everything's operating as designed. Because of our automation system, we have a monitoring services. This is really pretty cool. This will go out to Mr. Coulter once a month, and this describes just general conditions, and we assign a letter grade to schools and HVAC units. And so it's a great way for our customers to quickly look at something and identify that this is where we need to focus our attention this month. We've got a couple of units that maybe aren't reaching set point in a reasonable amount of time. We'll flag those so that maybe they're low on refrigerant, maybe a belt is loose on the pulley, and that allows the maintenance team to really streamline their efforts to support the facilities. Optimization is a service that we can offer where we can reset schedules or set points on regular, maybe semi-annually. I don't expect it's not as common in schools because if Susie moves from one room to another and she likes her set point a little bit different, Chris is going to be on top of that, and so we're probably not going to want to reset things and disturb temperatures in the spaces. So, but it's something that can kind of help with energy savings, and maybe we're struggling a little bit in some facilities. Resource Advisor is our online portal. This will store all of your utility bills that were being tracked. It'll also be an online repository for the staff to go in and see our site visit reports, for example. So we'll write up exactly what we did when we came on site, put it almost in like a service ticket. Of course, you don't have to pay for it. It's not like an invoice or anything, but it's here's exactly what we did, the schools that we visited, and what resolutions we made. So we keep records of that. Given the long relationship that we have, or that we will have, it's important for there may be another superintendent or a new maintenance staff. They can see the history of the relationship going back many years. This is what they were working on back then, and this is where we're at now. So all of that's stored online and quick and easy for you to. And finally, when we talk about the building automation system, I think I looked and it was maybe $1 million that was broken out for that. So a major investment, and a lot of that lives on what's called an enterprise server. It's quite literally a
I know we're over time. The only thing we had left on here were some student engagement experiences with the school district, which have been very impactful. This is just one of them we did last year, but we've done several Earth Day events with elementary and middle school students, and then we've held our annual Students in STEAM event that's been at the Discovery Science Center in Colorado Springs. I think Lewis Palmer was our sponsored school district a few years ago. Dr. Somers attended. It was a lot of fun. We've had a wonderful time partnering with the school district in the development process, and as I'm sort of turning this over to Dave and Kelsey, it makes me a little bittersweet, but it has been a wonderful journey. There's been some district partnership media content, and I know that's happened a lot during the investment grade audit process, but as we get into the measurement and verification process, sharing this information, the CO2 emissions, the achieved utility cost savings, that's great information to share online, so partnering with Mark will be very beneficial there. And lastly, I won't play for the sake of time, and I think this happened the last time I presented to you all. We didn't have time for it, but please take a look at the video when you get a chance. Our team spent a lot of time at Prairie Winds speaking with a bunch of folks over there about, of course, the security and vestibule, but talking about the project metrics itself. It's a professionally produced video that you can use on social media, however you'd like to, but that was a part of our partnership as well, inclusive of the cost of the project. So, again, just another highlight for the project initiative, but I believe that's all we have today. So all of our contact information is up there, and then the following pages are just an appendix for the measurement and verification, gets into the nitty-gritty of Kelsey's favorite topic. So,
I was going to say, we'll probably see you reasonably soon. As you saw, we achieved about $230,000 in savings through September. We like to get in front of the board when we hit some milestones, so typically about $500,000 in savings. We might get in front of you guys and at a board meeting, maybe get some local media to celebrate that milestone. I expect it will happen in year one, so maybe I'm just thinking late summer, might target something like that.
And I would encourage my fellow board members to, on your time, look at slides, especially 53 through when it breaks down each of the buildings. I think that's very valuable. It gives us a good measurement of what's been accomplished, what are some of the ins and outs, and I think those pie charts are really, I found them valuable personally, so maybe you do as well. I have a quick question.
yes.
On page, just when you go back up, the construction site, no, not quite that far. Page 37. Which building is that, Dr. Summers? This one right here.
Oh, I believe that's Grace Best.
I thought, yeah.
On
and
the right side.
That was the project that was worked on this summer, right?
Yes.
And there was a lot of community buzz about that project. And so I just wanted to elevate that and point that out, that was a partnership with our students as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And we've seen a lot of positive feedback and a lot of celebration about the work that was done there at Grace Best and the beautification that went into that. So,
This was an initiative that year in 2022 in the springtime. Our team said we need to choose one school district on our West Coast team, so that's California, Arizona, and Colorado, to work with. And I spoke with Dr. Summers about it. We basically put our name in a cap. It was literally picked out of a cap, and it said Lewis Palmer. We're like, yes. So our whole team came out, and yeah, we did. It was a really fun day. Got a lot of students involved. We had some students build like this mini wind turbine activity. That was a ton of fun. We worked with Leslie Lance, who's been wonderful. I checked in with her last month. It sounds like the outdoor garden's going really well. So again, yeah, just a wonderful continued way to continue our partnerships.
And just one additional point, all of this information, and we'll actually include this PowerPoint and then additional updates. We do have a dedicated webpage that anyone in our community can go and visit. So we'll continue to communicate and share that, share successes and all the good information.
and while we are over, I do want to honor the opportunity for the rest of the board to weigh in. Mr. Schwartz?
A couple quick things. First of all, a big thank you. Can you go back? I just can't see the page numbers. The construction completion dates slide near the top.
This one here, or
Keep going, keep going, keep going. There you go. You passed it. That's a lot of work, right? And on any given day, we have about a third of the region's population in our buildings. So this stuff matters, right? Keeping them safe, keeping them warm is impactful. So thank you, right? That matters. That's why we're here. Secondly, is look at the middle school and under the mechanical and electrical on the 4th of August of this year. Is that the boiler replacement for the middle school?
Yeah, it's also valve replacements across.
Okay. So that boiler, I don't know if Chris was here yet, but do you remember the mega disruption we had at that school with the boiler?
Yes.
All too well.
You had a lot less gray hair before that day, right?
And
Here's
other
my
things,
point. When you modernize, you reduce those horrible events. Okay? So there's a lot of recognized benefits to doing this as well. And we had been in a fiscal position prior where we kept kicking cans down the road, and eventually when you kick the cans down the road, you end up with a pile of trash, right? And so we picked away at this and in 2 years got a lot of that done. So that's what I was referring to when I say it's an operational big win for a reasonable fiscal deal. Speaking of fiscal, my last thing I promised Ms. Upchurch, on the client services, as part of our contract with Schneider, how many years of client services do we pay for? And is there a tipping point where we need to start thinking fiscally about when we pay for it out of pocket?
Right, that's a great question.
And when does that day happen?
The Colorado Energy Office requires 3 years of post-construction support to be included in the cost of the tuition. It would be, so that would be December of 2023 through 24, 25, and 26. At that point, we'll work with the facilities team, see what worked, what didn't work. Maybe they want more services in a certain area and less services where they weren't seeing value. And at that point, there would be some invoicing annually for those services.
Okay, so just so we can size the animal, if we were to do it on January 1 of 24 instead of January 1 of 27, for exactly what we're getting today, what would the cost be?
So what are the 3 years, is the value of the 3 years?
No? No, what would Schneider charge the district
I think it's about $35,000 for the services.
annually?
Yes.
Okay, in today's dollars.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I can follow up with a more specific question.
Well, we just want a budgetary amount so we can know what our choices are. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. There's a lot of good information here and a lot of good work that has gone into this.
Yeah. Nice job, team.
It's been a journey, and it's continuing.
It is continuing. You'll definitely see us again. Absolutely. Congratulations again to the new board members. Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
And congratulations to you on the success of this work that's going in.
Thank you. And yeah, to the hard work of Dr. Somers, my goodness, since the beginning, really the head honcho over here, and Director Schwartz, thank you both so much for your dedicated time. It's been nothing.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. And Kelsey.
And Kelsey. Thank you, Kelsey.
I'll look forward to working together.
Sorry.
See you Thursday.
Yes, we there too.
Okay, great. See you, Casby.
Okay, so our next and last agenda item for today's work session is C2 new board member onboarding discussion. And what this is this is just mostly a springboard or a preview for, we have our upcoming board retreat coming up. So this is a springboard for you to get some information and lots to digest before we go into what does it mean to be a Lewis Palmer School District 38 Board of Education Director. So let's start out with, why am I Okay. So we'll start out with our policy matrix.
Yes, I could help facilitate a little bit of that introduction, Ms. Upchurch. So actually, bear with me. I'm in the draft agenda right now for December 11th, so I was doing a little multitasking during our presentation. So if you have your agenda up, and actually, Vicki, if you don't, could you just pull it up too? That way, for anyone that's not in board docs, we can just orient the team to what this matrix is, what it does. So as you'll learn about among the responsibilities that you all will be engaging with as we move forward, policy review, revision, and approval will be one of your major activities. And what we know is that there are several policies, and there are a lot of opportunities to lean in or go deeper into each of these. And I know it's a little bit hard to see as it's brought up here on the screen, but essentially what you'll see, Vicki, if there's a way to just kind of zoom in a bit. We like to have a running record of when we are introducing a policy, a specific policy for review. So that's the first column. All of our policies have corresponding codes. Those codes are standardized really across most, if not all, Colorado school districts. So that's a very helpful tool when we are talking about specific policies, and there are specific sections, and we won't go through all of those right now, but if you have a moment over the next couple of weeks, what I would encourage you to do, particularly for our newest board members, is to spend a little bit of time in board docs and in board policies. And the first three sections are around foundations and basic commitments, section A. Section B is board responsibilities and how the board works. And then section C is about administration of the schools, so it speaks a little bit to the superintendent's role and expectations. Those are three foundational policy sections that would be helpful for your edification. And we can spend time on any of those or all of those as we continue to move in a purposeful direction. But there are three here, three specific G section policies. Section G relates to staff. So in this particular case, you see the top three policies that are listed here on this matrix are around our sexual harassment policy for staff, GBAA, GBEB, staff conduct, and then GBGG, staff sick leave. You see our recommended action. So when we put this in front of you all at the December 11th meeting, we are recommending some revision to each of those policies. And then you see a quick description of the reasons for that revision and adoption. So we try to keep this pretty concise. A lot of times there's just additional detail or specificity, and many times the reason for that detail or specificity is part of either an update to legislation, and or we work very closely with CASB, the Colorado Association of School Boards, on general recommendations that are made as a result of recommendations that CASB may make. So in the case of these three specific policies, that's the basis for what those reasons are unique to each of those. And then you see the impact of that change also summarized. So without necessarily reading that out loud, you get a sense of what the additional detail or change may lead toward as far as impact. We like to the extent possible, keeping in mind that our strategic plan is multi-pronged with 6 priorities that we are referring to. So in this particular case, typically our staff-related policies align to our strategic plan priority number 3, which is valuing our people. And then you see the district lead listed there as well, and Alicia Welch, who unfortunately is not currently in the room. She's actually attending to an employee-related issue. But Alicia will take the lead oftentimes on policies related to staff topics. And then we divide up policy review and sort of the driver or lead from the district level. So Amber, for example, works very closely with any policies that are related to instruction and academic focus. Obviously, Brett around finance, business-related topics. Chris Coulter around our facilities and operations. Rick Frampton kind of has a few on his plate, typically related to student services and safety. Mark Belcher will work on engagement with the community, family-related types of policies. But we all work together as a team. Previous years, and we haven't made as much of a focus on this as of recent, but we also have an opportunity, and it's something for us to think a little bit more about, is if it would behoove this board to assign a specific lead or a team of two, to partner with a district lead. And we can talk more about how that would operationalize. So we don't have to necessarily make a decision. I mean, at the end of the day, you all kind of have all of them available to you. So we just, from an economy or an efficiency angle, will oftentimes say, perhaps Ms. Upchurch would take a lead and maybe she would be partnering with Dr. Shank on a particular set of policies. We don't have to do that in every situation, but again, something for us to consider. And then just as a reminder, we use a first read, second read protocol. And that's consistent with one of our policies related to policy development, which is in Section B. And so your first reading for those three policies that you have on that matrix will be at the December 11th meeting. The second reading, so first reading just gives you an opportunity to look at it in more detail. We typically will walk you through the specific recommendations and just let you know, here's what the new red line version is. And then that helps solidify what exactly the change is that's being proposed. And then there's an opportunity, particularly when there needs to be more discussion about a particular item, to allow for some lead time prior to an official review, or review for consideration and approval at a subsequent meeting. In this case, and we just don't have it listed here yet, but it would be in the January meeting. We like to do it in consecutive months, first read to second read. I think I touched on most of what I wanted to hit on. Anything else that you'd like to echo there, Ms. Upchurch?
I would just echo that we are a policy governance. We govern through policy. And although a lot of our policies come from recommendations based on statute or something that has come up throughout the state. For example, if CASB recommends something, usually CASB's recommendations also come from statute. But we also, as board members, and for that matter, our stakeholders, can also bring policy revisions or policy ideas to the table. There has been multiple situations or occasions where we'll have a policy recommendation and a board member will say, I'm not quite clear on how this affects us. Is this in the best interest of D38? Can we make sure that we're still following statute, but make it more tailored to who we are as a school district? And we've done that in the past. I personally have found value, and Mr. Schwartz, you can weigh in on this. I have found value in having a board lead on that, so that having that dialogue with a fellow board member and saying, okay, you met with Mrs. Welch. What is your take on this? Or is this in the right direction, or can you speak to this so that I can understand it better? So that we're not necessarily always, all five of us, coming and pinging every single staff member. The executive team, for example, maybe Ms. Wittstein has something that she wants to propose, and Mr. Norris is partnering, and so then we can contact Mr. Norris and say, okay, what did the two of you discuss? How did this come about? And it can be an easy conversation. So having a board lead on that does personally have value, but that is up to us as board members. Mr. Schwartz may have a different perspective.
The only other thing I wanted to mention in light of this particular PDF is, Vicki, we actually have a master spreadsheet. You're just getting the most recent. Policies that have been reviewed, I believe, since beginning of this school year. I just know that there's more information that we can share with you. We didn't want to inundate you with the proverbial fire hose of all the policies that we reviewed over the past few years, but it's a more comprehensive document, and it would be helpful to also share that document with you via your Google district account. So we make use of Google Sheets, Google Docs. Google is our go-to database in order to host all of that information. So oftentimes what you will receive then via email, we can make sure that your accounts are set up so that you receive alerts to updates as they're put into that system. It just helps clean that up a little bit. So anything that we can do to help facilitate your ease of access and reference is what we'll make sure to continue to do. Both as we go into meetings during a work session format, we just like to make mention of here's what's coming up for the next meeting. And then there's a lot of in-between work, of course, that you can anticipate as well. But anytime you have a question on any of this, just don't hesitate to reach out. And just for the sake of simplicity right now, I'm happy to be that initial conduit, and then we can talk a little bit more about your ability to access other members of our executive team. That would be another norm and operating procedure that I just want to spend a little bit of time with you all on to make sure that it's meeting your needs and it's helping create space for us to be responsive to whatever that is.
Yeah. Any thoughts or questions as far as policy matrix goes? And you'll have your access to your board docs. So, for example, we won't normally have a 1-week turnaround between a work session and a regular board meeting, but in this circumstance, because December is a shortened month due to the Christmas break, this is why we have our meeting coming up. So you'll see in board docs, you'll have access to look at the executive content and the board member content of these 3, for example, will be proposed to us as board members at our upcoming meeting on Monday, and then we'll discuss questions, thoughts as it relates to those, and then we'll vote on them in January. So you're kicking it off right with 3 policies to review.
Ms. Upchurch, in light of December 11th, and if there's no other questions related to policy, is it okay if I just take a moment to preview December 11th's agenda?
Yeah, yes, let's do that.
So, and Ms. Wood, are you logged in? Okay, that's okay. So I apologize, I don't have a visual reference for you here, but I do want to just shape what to anticipate for the December 11th agenda. So another thing that we like to do during this time is just make sure that you have an idea of what the specific agenda items will be. So this is very high level. We actually have a number of recognitions that will be part of the beginning of our meeting, in addition to what Ms. Upchurch mentioned earlier, which is an opportunity for a little bit more of a community-wide and formal or reintroduction of you all to our community. We will have the opportunity to present to disabled American veterans a check based on a fundraising campaign that we just did. We'll have 2 high school state champion teams from Palmer Ridge that we will be able to introduce to you. So we make a habit of celebrating student successes at this particular month for this particular fall season. We were very fortunate to be able to see a lot of student success throughout the fall season, but we have 2 state champion teams, both our gymnastics team from Palmer Ridge and then our girls volleyball team that we will share that with you. And then we actually have student representatives, and I won't say a ton about that right now, but we are doing a rotating approach to welcoming in students from, for this month it'll be some representatives from Palmer Ridge High School, and then next month it will be Lewis Palmer High School student reps, and currently right now that's how we're alternating back and forth. So Mr. Schwartz can share a little bit more with you around that and kind of introduce you to the concept and what's there. There's an opportunity for public comment, of course, at every meeting. So we'll field whoever from the community is here to provide public comment, and then you have an opportunity for any board member comments that you would like to make. So we can talk a little bit more about that. Every meeting also has a superintendent update as a feature. And I will just kind of use a PowerPoint to highlight and share successes and celebrations and things to come during that update. Something that I will just mention that will be built into this particular update is we were very fortunate to be able to work very closely with Kilmer Elementary staff and parents over the past couple of weeks to glean feedback about the performance of our interim principal from Kilmer Elementary, Mr. Greg Saunders. And he's doing an absolute fantastic job. And based on the feedback, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about this, we are presenting to you him for consideration to be officially named the ongoing principal at Kilmer Elementary. And we do have some different administrative appointments and upcoming hires that I'll spend a little bit more time on in that meeting, but it'd be great to have Greg also in front of you at that meeting, because I don't believe we had the chance to do that last spring during that transition time. So Section B is a lot of the, I like to call it pomp and circumstance, but it's really recognitions, comments, and then setting the stage for Section C of our regular meetings, which is board discussion and action items. So for December, and we are in a good position here to be able to help, as part of your orientation, give you some really quality information from C1 will be our fall survey data review opportunity. So we have results from our most recent round of student, staff, and family survey responses that we will summarize and share and give you an opportunity to interact with it a bit and ask some questions. And so we're excited about sharing that with you. And then we have another share out around some survey data, and this is specific to our 4-day school week conversations that we've had with staff recently. So we'd like to share the results of what we have heard from our staff, and then we're going to frame some considerations and some additional opportunity for discussion around the concept of a 4-day school week and what we've learned from what our staff have shared. And then what the implications of that are for you all in terms of some potential next steps. And I think for this particular meeting, and I've talked already with Ms. Upchurch about this, we aren't necessarily asking you to take any specific action at this point in time, but I think something that it just gets the wheels spinning a little bit is how can we respond to the data in a way that helps our staff as well as our broader community understand where we are, where we may be going, and the board ultimately in your official position is the sole entity that can approve and authorize a school year calendar. So we'll walk you through a little bit more of those steps, what the implications of, again, everything that we've learned are at this point, and then essentially give you some different ways to help direct and guide what you would expect from the district leadership team and what we can communicate to our staff on behalf of what that opportunity presents. So more to discuss there. Another feature of every board regular meeting is a financial planning and analysis section that is facilitated, of course, by Brett Ridgway. And at this particular meeting, we'll be talking in more detail about the upcoming mill levy certification and what the implications of that particular action, which is another action that the board is the sole entity that can make and essentially set the mills for the upcoming year. Given the special session that was just facilitated before Thanksgiving by state legislators, and of course, I don't know if you've heard yet, but there's some information on a recent letter from our governor. We have actually seen an extension of that deadline. So normally we approve we set the mills during, or you would set them during a regular meeting in December. In this particular case, the extension has been granted through January 10th. So what that should just mean to you right now is that at our January 9th scheduled work session, we are asking that we also convene a special meeting similar to what we did today where you will have the opportunity to officially vote on the approval of those mills. And Brett will do a fantastic job of helping you understand exactly what all that means. So a lot of what we'll do on December 11th is just educating you on the way mills work and what they currently look like in Lewis Palmer School District, and answer any questions you may have. But it's really about orienting you for that future action at a January 9th meeting. As I mentioned, that will turn into a special meeting. The other thing, and I won't say a lot about this right now, but we also have an audit that we are pending receipt and completion of. And there's a chance that we may have our draft shared with us prior to December 11th. We don't anticipate that that's going to give you a lot of time or us time to really prepare for a December 11th presentation. So we just want to talk about where we sit with that audit information. And again, we're probably anticipating a January regular meeting presentation, again facilitated by both Brett and potentially our auditor who would be with us at that time. Mr. Schwartz has a question, and I think Brett has something that he'd like to mention as well.
Sit back, it's going to be a long one. Actually, for Todd and Patty, we're not being audited. We have to, by law, do an audit every year of our finances because it's the public. And sometimes the word audit has a negative connotation. Nothing negative here. Normal course of stuff, we do it every year.
But we do have a new auditing firm this year that we've
Yes.
hired to get a different set of eyes.
That's because Brett audited the auditors and wasn't happy.
Anything else you wanted to say related to that topic, sir?
No, yeah, I've been, they're at the point that there's more business than there are auditors in the state when it comes to public entities. So we're in a point where they're juggling, trying to wrap up audits for all kinds of entities, and so the delay is nothing on our end. It's not even really anything malicious on their end. They're just trying to balance all the work. So. I just was sending them some more things this morning, and like I said, usually when you get to this point, it's like they'll ask a question, you send them, you ask a question, they send them, and then boom, there's the draft. So the draft can really fall on us at any moment right now. But yes, as Mr. Schwartz said, this is just an annual exercise required by all state government entities to provide an audit. So it's much more collaborative than maybe a typical private sector audit, which is more like facing a test. This is more collaborative, making sure that that things are coming together as they should.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I share some thought?
Of course.
Regarding our mill certification? That is part of the Board of Education's duty. And when we do that, we are also required by state statute to be up to 27 mills. We're not there yet. So I wonder if there might be room for some deeper dive of what that means at one of the meetings before, or either before we vote or before we're presented with it.
We intend on presenting that to you at the December 11th meeting. So you will have an opportunity to see that, that in addition to what else is built into our structure, including our $4 million fixed dollar rate mill back from 1999, as well as bond mills that are also factored in from previous bond.
Yeah, we'll go through the whole
yep.
package.
Yep.
On December 11th.
So yes, we're prepared to do that at December 11th. Sorry if I didn't make that more clear.
When do we go back to school?
January 4th?
Okay.
Is that, I think that was the question you were asking.
Yep.
Okay. We already talked a little bit about the policy revisions, so that is item C4. And then last but not least, you will always have, or typically have, a consent agenda slate. Built into that consent agenda, currently we do minutes as part of consent agenda. That's just been a norm that we've adapted or adopted over time. Personnel items is a standard report that you will receive based on moves, both in terms of hires as well as any departures and the different categories of personnel transition. So that is a report that we typically do not go into a lot of detail with, but certainly if there's any questions that you ever have, we can entertain those. And then there's also a section of budget items requiring board signature, which at least for this meeting, I don't know that we have, I don't know off the top of my head if we have any, but those will appear as attachments. Anything over $50,000 as a purchase threshold is or does require board approval and signature. And then there are different thresholds that we have established for different members of our leadership team, but my threshold goes all the way up to $49,999. So anything over 50 is what you would see in that particular section. Anything else I'm missing that you want to mention? Just
And
run
then
a little bit
before we
deeper here.
adjourn, if there's any, for the good of the order, good of the business, that any of the board members want to bring to light for future meetings. Say you want to discuss in January, you want to discuss busing. I don't know, just as an example. Then there'd be an opportunity to share that out so we can make sure we capture that. Or that.
Might be helpful to, and I think this, if I can just speak really briefly and high level to the upcoming December 18th retreat. We would envision as part of that retreat sharing a little bit more in regards to kind of the general orientation of our strategic plan, our typical cadence for review and updates around different priorities of that plan. Unique to all of that, and I think I've had the opportunity to speak to a few of you already, not all of you yet. So Mr. Norris, Mr. Brown, I'd like just a few moments, if we can find it in the next week or so here. We really would like to have 3 buckets of the retreat. The first is just a healthy team building opportunity around clarity and roles and responsibilities, as well as some collaborative development around board norms and operating principles. So we think that's just a nice way to level set how we work and what we're committing to, and that's everything from communication to ensuring that you all have a framework for thinking about decision making and doing the business of the board. We'd also like to take some time to really talk about and give you each individually and then collectively an opportunity to hear more about your passions, your intended contributions that you really are striving to make, and how those frame board goals for this upcoming remainder of the school year, as well as you think about the next 4 years or next 2 years, if it depending on your term. So that gives you a chance with really the 5 of you together to engage in some of that. And just so you know, to be clear, I'll help facilitate a good portion of that meeting in partnership with Ms. Upchurch. And then the last section, and I won't make too much of this right now, but given my current upcoming or impending transition opportunity, we think it would be helpful to at least start a conversation about some succession planning unique to the superintendent role. So there's some different ways we can shape that conversation with you. But we do have about 6 hours planned. I think those are 3 big bucket items that gives us a chance to spend time in each, and then continue to move into setting the stage for the upcoming calendar year. January 9th, at least if we don't change our current cadence of work sessions, that would be our next work session / special meeting. We are anticipating right now, I'll just give a very quick nod to Chris Coulter and Rick Frampton and really our whole executive team. We've been working very closely around facility utilization, facility adequacy, and some conversations about demographic trends and future enrollment, and presenting to you all some of how all those numbers are currently appearing and the implications of how that work will or can move forward. Around all of that, we really would like to also spend some time thinking about upcoming community engagement opportunities. So how do we share all of what's happening with our public, and then how do we go about and what's going to be really important to glean as far as feedback and input from the community around some of these items. We are envisioning, and this is something I can give you a draft of also at the retreat, is an outline and a draft schedule of some future upcoming engagement opportunities going into January, February, and beyond. And we'd really like to do that in a partnership manner, so that those meetings would typically be facilitated or co-facilitated by members of our executive team as well as members of our board. So everything from where and when and how, we just want to tee that up a little bit, because I think there's a really great window coming into a new school year or new calendar year rather, to engage with our community and build those relationships. So I just threw like a ton out, but that's sort of the general kind of features of where I see our next steps taking place.
So I want to clarify, I don't know if anybody else has this question. Some of those items are items we're going to be discussing at our upcoming January meeting.
Correct. Yeah. So everything I just shared is really January. Everything I shared before was December. Yeah, we've got to do it, sort of.
Right.
But I think we found a good cadence. We just had a great team meeting about this yesterday. We feel really prepared for those December updates, as I mentioned to you, leaning into the retreat, and then coming into January, rounding the corner with some momentum that will really hopefully serve you all as well as our constituents that we're here to steward in this collaborative process.
And Ms. Wood will be sending out information for our retreat on address, location, lunch.
Ms. Wood, I believe we've got all that settled, so yeah, we can get that out via email to you as soon as possible.
And so we're scheduled for 6 hours, so we should be done in plenty of time to get you home after 10 hours.
So buckle up. May I make a second to one of the suggestions?
Mm-hmm.
We only have one employee. That employee is transitioning. And that's our responsibility to take care of our 6,500 kids and our customers or our constituents. So I'd like to, if everybody concurs, make sure that we talk about transition planning and what the criteria is for a quality hire going forward as one of our top priorities for the 18th.
Yeah, that's on the agenda.
If I can take a quick second as well to make sure that all of you know, and this is obviously very public at this point, from a timeline angle, I'm in the middle of contract negotiations right now with the governing board from Peoria Unified School District. We anticipate those negotiations being finalized by December 14th. So the reason I share that date with you is assuming everything is in place with that official contract. And one of the bigger items that is being discussed right now, and I won't go into a lot of this detail publicly, but would be an official end date, start date. And without, again, getting into the weeds of that, there will be some transition time, both from the standpoint of offboarding as well as supporting you as well as any incoming member of the team. I don't know exactly what that will look like quite yet, but that's a big component, I realize, both from your perspective as well as where I'll be going. The other thing that we'll do then is likely trigger, I don't know if it'll be as early as December 15th, but I would anticipate by December 18th at the retreat, you will know exactly where I'm at in that transition. That will likely be an official tender of resignation notice that I'd like to give you as much lead time as possible with. So just so there's no question marks that are lingering around that, I appreciate your patience and perspective in both what's going to be good for Lewis Palmer School District in that regard. And then there's a whole lot of potential to talk about different aspects of a succession plan, to your point there, Mr. Schwartz. So anyway, thanks for bearing with me in that, and as soon as I have that information and it's more official, we'll be able to share all of that with you.
So currently, Dr. Summers is our superintendent, and he's our sole employee. And so as we're moving forward, we can glean and learn from what worked well, and what we can do to make sure we're not resting on our laurels, and making sure we're moving forward and not taking our foot off the gas, because we've got a lot of forward momentum that this board has really worked hard on, and this entire team. So honoring our staff and our students and our community as we move forward. So that'll be coming pretty swiftly within the next couple weeks. And in light of time, because it's already 10:17, you each have a folder, and the folder is basically a hard copy of what's on our board docs, and it's basically a succession plan or a continuity file onboarding document. It gives you a rundown, gives us all a rundown. Thank you, by the way, Mr. Belcher, for putting this together. It runs down our mission, our vision, our district maps, our committees, and what we're responsible for as board members, what the committees are responsible for, and where they live. It also includes who our staff members are. And so just take a look through that, and that will help you, I think, as we go into our retreat. And I will be emailing you each a 61-page file on Colorado School Finance 101, and it's actually an easy read. It's not an easy concept, but it's easy to get through. So there's a lot of good information. And one of the things we as a board have the ability to do is we're not locked into each time there's a new board, it's a new board. We have our own cadence. So we're not locked into our meeting times as they are now. So if all 5 of us have, say, a time commitment that doesn't work, or we find that the staff would rather, it would be better for the board and the staff to meet on an afternoon, like a Tuesday afternoon, at like 3 or 4 o'clock. We have that ability. We want to make sure that we're being transparent and accessible for our stakeholders, but I would just think about that in the back of your mind as we go into our board retreat on how you see your place and how we see our place as we work forward. You guys are all quiet. I know it's early and I've only had 1 cup of coffee.
It's a lot of data to
It is.
absorb.
Yeah.
The fire hose is fully.
So I remember my first meeting, and I left skid marks on the way out. It'll all inculcate into you over a little bit of time, right, Chris?
Yep.
But give yourself a few months and take it as it comes and enjoy the ride, because we're doing good things for the next generation of our country.
Yep. Chris, you've just finished kind of drinking from that fire hose.
No, I haven't.
Enough said.
Well, if we don't have anything else we want to discuss today, then I'd recommend that we adjourn. And don't forget, we are doing board pictures, too.
Get ready to smile. And you guys look great. So I think just to cue that, Stephanie, Mark, we're doing individual first. So individual board member pictures first, followed by a group board picture, and then we're going to take an opportunity to do a group picture with all of our exec team when we get them all here, and the board together, and then you guys are free to go, and then we're doing ours following that. So how do